The Kampala Convention is a partnership between the African Union, between African states and African people, including civil society. And its implementation has to be done on the basis of that partnership. It's the one convention that addresses obligations of international organizations or agencies that are involved in the protection and assistance to internally displaced persons. You don't find that, anywhere else. So that's an important mark. It has obligations for the African Union as well in terms of what the Union should be doing, and the spirit of implementation has to be taken in the context of the spirit of partnership in which it was elaborated. It's quite clear that it will also require resources in terms of implementation, and that these would be both national and international resources based on the question of partnership between African states and the international system. It brings together humanitarian and development actors in the context of displacement, because this is an area that has been a gap, for some time. But its provisions in the context of either durable solutions or in the context of the partnership that exists between international organizations and the African Union shows that there's also room. And indeed, the World Bank, for example, has already looked at the development aspects of the Kampala Convention in terms of implementation. So one suspects that different organizations will look at obligations that apply to them and see how far they can assist in the implementation of those provisions. And I think it's quite critical and something that African states should be proud of, as their contribution actually, to the international legal system. It's a framework. It does not create binding obligations on states. It guides states on what to do in relation to IDPs. So this is the world's first legal agreement on internally displaced persons. And even if it's African in origin and also in scope, the standards that it contains are general in the context of internally displaced persons. And it's also a model, perhaps for other regions, to look at and see how in future, if they wanted to elaborate a legally binding framework on internally displaced persons, they could do so. What the convention does here is to provide a comprehensive framework for looking at the known causes of displacement and also applies to all displaced persons irrespective of the cause of displacement. So it's comprehensive and starts from that point of view. It does require that its provisions should be used in peace negotiations where conflict is negotiated to bring it to an end, so that IDPs are not left stranded. They are stakeholders in the conflict as victims of that conflict. And peace framework that emerges out of that should also address the issue of solutions to IDPs and how IDPs have to be treated in that context. So, for that reason, it's quite vital. But it starts from recognizing the problem of displacement on the African continent in the preamble, what is necessary to be done and calls for action, and then points out the legal basis on which the convention itself is formulated. Then it goes into those aspects of the convention that require to prevent displacement, especially arbitrary displacement. You can't prevent all types of displacement, but arbitrary displacement which arises from either ethnic cleansing, discrimination, and the like may be foreseeable and therefore, preventable. So for those that want to look at how do we actually prevent displacement, the first few provisions actually deal with that in the context of the framework of the convention.